What do Adam Conover, Jamie Kilstein, and Nick Di Paolo have in common? Well, they've all been guests of Joe Rogan's at some point, and things really got a little too hot, even by Joe Rogan standards. We're talking getting old Joe so mad he could have punched them in the face on camera if he could. Hello there, and welcome to yet another exciting episode. In this episode, we'll show you at least 10 times when Joe Rogan lost his temper, with guests live on camera. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. We all know Joe Rogan as the straight-shooting interviewer who likes to interview guys on topics that you wouldn't normally see on cable TV. We're talking about mundane, weird, funny, and controversial topics that even Fox News interviewers don't dare touch with a 10-foot pole. This guy has a cult following because of his guests and what they talk about. Joe Rogan is no stranger to controversy and has always been in the news for all the wrong reasons. Some people hate him because of his views on sensitive topics that we don't want to get into at this point. In some cases, it is the type of guest he invites on his show who put him in hot soup or force him into some uncomfortable, almost hilarious feats of anger. The following are examples of moments where Joe Rogan lost his temper with some of the guests he had on his podcast. Number 1. Jamie Kilstein. There was a brief moment of tension when Joe Rogan hosted stand-up comic Jamie Kilstein on one of his podcasts. While discussing rape and sexual assault, Jamie seemed to suggest that sexual assault is worse than death, something Joe Rogan found rather odd and kind of annoying. You could tell from his voice and facial expressions that Joe Rogan was in disagreement. Of course, the whole thing did not go south, and Jamie did end up being a cool guest, although. They discussed all things sexual assault and rape and other general topics. However, Joe Rogan did seem a bit taken aback by Jamie Kilstein, and the whole interview just seemed a bit tense and awkward, even by Rogan standards. For instance, Rogan seemed to take issue with a simple cliche phrases that Jamie was using, and at one point he warned him against using them again in his show. Number 2. Steven Crowder. We all know Joe Rogan is a big weed guy, so it was guaranteed to get hot when Steven Crowder, a guy who seems to have an issue with marijuana, came to his show. As expected, the whole conversation went south as Steven Crowder made ridiculous claims about the effects of marijuana. At some point, a reference was made to an article where he'd referred to marijuana users as morons. Joe Rogan, being the guy that's not about to let this slide, truly lost his cool mocking Steven and his claims live on the show. The entire thing became about Joe Rogan trying to call the American-Canadian comic out and making him look like a fool. Joe Rogan is about taking on uncomfortable topics and going behind enemy lines, and this was one clear example of that. Number 3. Mark Gordon. When a guy makes ridiculous claims about some magic pill that helps people with liver disease in Joe Rogan's presence, you can expect some unnerving exchange to ensue. This is exactly what happened when medical consultant cum supplement peddler Mark Gordon made an appearance on Joe Rogan Live. This guy was talking about a certain supplement and how it could help people suffering from liver disease. Joe Rogan was clearly not buying it. In the awkward exchange after the claims, Joe Rogan is heard angrily dismissing the good doctor and saying he would have called him out if he was smarter. We're not sure if this was a sponsored episode, but if it was, then Joe made it hard for the guy to sell his supplement. Joe Rogan is known to say what he likes and does not shy away from controversy. However, this particular exchange paints a different picture of him as a guy who has clear boundaries on certain issues. Number 4. Adam Conover. In one of the most talked about podcasts, Joe Rogan debated Adam Ruins Everything host Adam Conover about issues transgender. To say the debate was a tense, awkward one would be an understatement, given how many reactions it's gotten across the interwebs. Among the issues discussed was whether transgenders who'd had a sex change should be allowed to compete in sports with their new gender. This was obviously a hot topic, and Joe Rogan went off on an angry tangent multiple times trying to get his point across. At some point, Joe and Adam went back and forth about the issue of helping children transition. Joe argued that helping children transition is not healthy for them. Adam disagreed, saying he's spoken to some experts. But when Joe asked him to prove it, he said he's not an expert. Clearly, the two had ventured into a topic that was a bit too deep for them, and their exchange was bound to go south. As expected, Joe Rogan could not hide his feelings, and his body language throughout the debate betrayed his anger and discomfort with the pesky guest. Number 5. Nick Di Paolo. One of the most memorable angry exchanges between Joe Rogan and a guest happened when he hosted a American stand-up comedian Nick Di Paolo, who's known for his hardline conservative views. Now, we all know that Joe is conservative himself, but he's not stupid enough to agree with every other conservative's views. On the podcast, Di Paolo and Joe discuss many things regarding U.S. politics, agreeing on most things, including how the left seems to suppress and silence everyone. However, when Joe Rogan said anything critical about Trump or right-wing news, Di Paolo went bonkers. For instance, when Joe claimed that Donald Trump lied about Russia, Di Paolo made ridiculous claims that Trump never lied, which made Joe Rogan mad. The whole exchange became more of a shouting match, and Joe's angry demeanor carried on for the better part of it. Number 6. Bryan Callen. One of the many episodes where Joe Rogan hosted MMA fighter Brendan Schaub and comedian Brian Schaub, there was a heated exchange that saw Joe lose his temper. This happened when Brian dismissed Brendan's claims that he allowed people to pick on him for too long. In the conversation, Joe Rogan is heard putting Brian in his place by pointing out that he was trying to act tough when he was not. Now, this is not a one-off, as things can be quite hot when these three guys meet. We're not sure whether Joe was really mad with Bryan Callen or just defending Brendan at this point, but it sure felt like he was going at it. It's important to mention, however, that this was probably one of the most entertaining episodes of the series. Number 7. Eddie Bravo. This is yet another weirdly entertaining episode that could have gotten out of hand, but didn't. In this episode, Joe Rogan played host to Flat Earther Eddie Bravo. Now, things can get ugly and awkward where a Flat Earther is involved, and this one did not disappoint. In a live podcast, Eddie Bravo went on and on about how space agencies lie about the shape of the Earth, using fake space theories and satellites. This made Joe Rogan angry. Joe Rogan appeared to have a low opinion of his guest and even made sarcastic comments about him throughout. Flat Earthers, they never disappoint, do they? Number 8. Milo Yiannopoulos. Unless you're a die-hard far-right fan, you probably wouldn't know who Milo is. Milo is a political commentator best known for his controversial views on political issues of the day. He tends to take very extreme standpoints on political and social issues. A perfect guest for Joe Rogan. However, in this particular episode, Milo seemed to have crossed the line when he claimed that Christianity had influenced most of what is viewed as acceptable behavior in today's society. Joe Rogan was clearly not in agreement and had an angry outburst for the better part of the live show after that statement. Number 9. Candace Owens. This was more of an embarrassing takedown of a guest than Joe being angry. It happened when Candace claimed that she did not believe in global warming, then admitted she did not have any knowledge on the subject. To this, Joe Rogan angrily told her that she should not make claims and hold such hardline opinions on a topic she admitted to not understanding. Number 10. Joey Diaz. Lastly, Joe Rogan did not seem to agree with some of the stuff comedian Joey Diaz said when he hosted him. Throughout the show, Joe Rogan seemed a bit abused and taken aback, while Joey Diaz went on and on about his upbringing and use of language that was considered offensive in most places. However, the show's quite entertaining and funny for the most part. That's it for today, folks. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comments what you think.